At the end of May, I had read over 50% of my manga collection out of my 652 volumes. During June and July, I had read 82 volumes, which isn't extremely impressive when you compare to someone like Katyn's, but it's still at least one a day. Now I want to start off with the catch-up volumes, first being volumes 10 and 11 of Chainsaw Man, which many are considering now part 1 of the series. The final 2 volumes showed Denji at his lowest since volume 1. During the series, he's gained so much and here loses almost everything. It's a bittersweet ending with beautiful fighting sequences that we've grown to love, with a few unexpected turnouts. I'm going to miss a lot of the characters that have been introduced in these first 11 volumes, but it started up weekly again and so far I've been enjoying it. Next, I read volume 3 of Drifting Dragons. I'm growing more and more attached to the dragons, which is kind of making it a lot more difficult to read. This volume in particular focuses on Takita, and she tries to return a smaller dragon back to its thunder. It's cute and wholesome at times, which makes the cooking and killing segments a little bit harder to read. But I'm still looking forward to it because the art is absolutely stellar. I then read Frieren volume 4. It's difficult to explain Frieren because with every volume it seems to change. Nothing really happens. Frieren and her company walking around town, topping up on inventory and slowly making their way to the Demon King's land. This volume in particular was very relaxing throughout, and it looks like Fern is going to be taking some sort of magic exam, so I expect some sort of like tournament arc thing to happen in the next couple of volumes. And lately I've been seeing people being turned off by the fact that it's taking this slice of life kind of direction. I then read volume 2 of Succubus and Hitman, more or less the same as what's happened in volume 1, except from it's rather than the men violating women, it's the women violating women. Not a lot can turn me away from reading manga, to be honest, but a couple of the panels in this series so far have kind of made me wince just a little bit, only because they keep showing the same panel over and over again. If you've read it, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but the art is really something special, especially the lewd parts. And then we have Spy Family volume 7. Lloyd gets his first opportunity to interact with his target, which was the cliffhanger from volume 6. The main premise of the story is really interesting and it takes such a backseat to the actual focus, which is Anya's school life and education. It really is a nice change to a lot of the other series that I'm currently reading. The hype is definitely overrated in my opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad series. Unlike Weeb Dad, I will be continuing this one. And then we have volume 2 of Kaiju number 8, similar to volume 1. It's action-packed. It kind of ends on a similar cliffhanger with Kafka showing off his ability to transform into a kaiju. Ichikawa and Iharu get some well-deserved spotlight in this volume. It's always nice to see secondary and sometimes even tertiary characters get some form of development. I have stopped reading this one weekly, but I'll probably continue it at some point, or maybe I'll just wait till the physical releases. And I read Marshall volume 5. This was very much a nothing volume. It kind of wraps up the previous arc, which finished pretty much in volume 4, and kind of introduces you to what's going to be happening going forward. This is my second read through and I've noticed more and more characters are being introduced, and Marsh can only carry the series so much. A lot of the secondary characters don't really get much development, unlike its comparison, One Punch Man, which has a plethora of interesting and detailed heroes. Marsh's schoolmates lack any form of impact in the story, especially this early on. That being said, it still gives me a good laugh every single volume. And we have the long-awaited volume 27 of Blue Exorcist. This, I think, looks to be the final arc. There's a big war that's starting up. Yukio and Rin have finished off their little squabble, and some unexpected turn of events transpires with Satan. I think at the moment there are only 4 volumes that aren't released physically in Japan, so that definitely means we're probably not getting 28 until sometime late next year. And then finally, I have Tomo Matsumoto's number 5. Now, to be honest, the first few pages were a little bit confusing for my liking, especially with Tomo Matsumoto's art. It's not always easy to understand the location of some of the characters and who's talking, sometimes even who's actually on the panel. I would say the final 2/3 wrapped up the story very nicely. A little twist towards the end. I won't spoil it for anyone if it was happy or sad for number 5, but overall, I really enjoyed the story. It was really action-packed, and I would say it's a great political series. It's just really light on the political side. My first time Matsumoto's work, and it definitely won't be my last. I also read 3 series from my Marble Race video, which I'll probably do a separate video on. Volume 1 of Mason Ikoku, Downfall, and Oh My Sweet Alien. Great reads, and I'll just have to start collecting more of Mason Ikoku. And then moving on to a bunch of the new series that I started in the last couple of months. The first was Shuzo Ishimi's new series, Welcome Back Alice. Young boy likes girl, gets cucked by his friend and then manipulated by said friend for reasons unknown. Kind of reminds me of Flowers of Evil, though Yohei fights back a little more and isn't as easily controlled. Though they are young Japanese kids, so they always go along with anything despite not wanting to do so. If you've enjoyed any of his previous works, you'll definitely enjoy this. The sad thing is, it's 180 pages and it just feels like 50. It's a super quick read. And then I read 26 volumes of Golden Kamuy, though it's not particularly new to me because I have watched the anime. I think I'm on season 3. This is the first time I've actually read the manga. It's similar in ways to One Piece. Everyone's looking for buried treasure, traveling to different locations, and the military are trying to stop everyone from getting there first. But instead of devil fruit users in the open seas, it's set in Japan in the early 1900s, with big beefy dudes punching bears and taking bullets to the head. I instantly became attached to a lot of these characters who, similar to the Straw Hats, are very quirky and wacky, and though their body proportions are more accurate to what you would see in real life, their eyebrows are something different. There's also a lot of cultural cooking and historical segments about old Japan, which is very interesting. The facial expressions make up for any downtime that you would experience doing long exposition. I thought it was really cool that rather than using treasure maps, you had tattoos on prisoners, which the characters have to then go and find, and they have the opportunity to either kill the person and skin him for the map, or they can just, trace it on paper and use that instead. A lot of action, there's a lot of cooking, and there's a tremendous amount of laughs pretty much every volume. I'm going to be kind of sad when the final volume comes out. I think it finishes at volume 31, which we'll probably get at the end of 2023, maybe early 2024. I then read 4 volumes of Sweet Blue Flowers, a nice little cute Yuri series. To be honest, these are 2-in-1s, so it's only 8 volumes technically, but to be honest, this could have been done in maybe 3 or 4 volumes. It threw me into the characters pretty quickly, and because the art style is quite simplistic, some of the girls look very much the same. A lot of drama was added in the second volume, which got me more invested, but that kind of wrapped up pretty quickly, and volume 3 was a little bit slow with the girls acting out a play, and volume 4 just ended pretty nicely. The pacing was pretty quick, but sometimes I didn't know when one conversation ended and another one started. Characters would show up in different places from the previous page, and sometimes I actually found myself getting lost in what was happening. It was an okay read. Maybe I was expecting a lot more because I know people really enjoyed the 2009 anime adaptation. Like I said, good read, if only it was a little bit shorter. These are young girls as well. I think they're 13 to 15, 16 by the time the series ends, so that can sometimes make older readers a little bit more uncomfortable. I then read the first 2 volumes of The Adventures of Dai. I honestly didn't think I was going to like this one because it came out in the late 80s. I thought it was going to be really slow and outdated. But if you like Dragon Quest, fantasy RPGs, or the first few volumes of Dragon Ball, you'll love this one. It follows young Dai as he tries to become the best warrior he can be, fighting bad guys, protecting his friends and family. But because of how old the series is, the story is brilliantly paced. The art is really nice and simplistic. It focuses more on the adventure side rather than the fights. The fights are quite interesting, but they're over pretty quickly. Like I said, it's more about the adventure side of things. Definitely worth the pickup. Just remember that it's going to be around 15 volumes. And then I read Jujutsu Kaisen, the first 15 volumes I think I have, plus volume 0. Again, this isn't new to me because I have watched the anime. And I've said this often, but this is definitely what modern day shonen series should strive to be. The pacing is quick, the fights are flashy, the characters feel impactful. I feel like Itadori doesn't really take away the spotlight from most of the other characters that show up, and sometimes they even overshadow him. I'm personally a big fan of the messy, unfinished art style, much like Tokyo Ghoul or Blue Exorcist, and this gives Jujutsu Kaisen a really gritty feel for the atmosphere. I'm up to date weekly with Jujutsu Kaisen, and I feel that this is kind of the peak. The Shibuya incident is very interesting. The arc is fantastic. I just feel like the series probably would have ended shortly after this with the popularity of the anime kind of, I don't know, the editors probably forced maybe persuaded the mangaka to continue the series. But then again, maybe the Culling Games just, I don't know, maybe they'll read better in volume form rather than weekly. I then read 5 volumes of Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. This definitely increases the comical value for the organization. If you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, you can definitely pick this one up and enjoy it to its full. If you're not a Kingdom Hearts fan, I don't think this is going to be, it's not a great adaptation for new readers. There's definitely missing context, and I would say probably give it a miss and just pick up the video games. And then I also read Kingdom Hearts 3 Volume 1. I think Volume 2 is now out. It was a bit of a shame because you're missing a game between this, so there's a lot of context that I'm maybe not looking forward to, but it'll be interesting to see how they tackle the story that they've missed. And then for the last new series, I read Crazy Food Truck, which before its release, a few people had said it's really good, and then it came out and loads of people were saying it was terrible. And to be honest, the series doesn't know what it wants to do. Is it a food manga, action series, both? You don't see the cooking in progress, it kind of just shows up, and it doesn't particularly look very good, especially when you compare it to something like Food Wars or One Piece or Golden Kamuy. The fighting isn't particularly choreographed very well, and the world building is slightly confusing. And also the ecchi is just thrown in. Plus, Arisa doesn't have much of a personality outside of her just being naked most of the time. I would say 3 of the 4 volumes are average at best, but the last volume left me wanting to know what's going to be happening next. I'll probably just give it a 3-volume read and then give it my thoughts afterwards. Hopefully it can redeem itself. And then finally, I reread one series, Death Note, for the 4th time, and despite knowing all the plot twists, I was still excited to read it. The first 7 volumes are such a tennis match between Light and L. The in-depth commentary of their plans, each one already knowing what the other is thinking, what their next words are going to be. It's super smart. And to top it all off, Bata's work is so clean and detailed, especially in the second half of the story, which debatably is the worst part of the series, as the last 5 volumes do feel like they drag on. I noticed it a lot more this time round, but the cast of characters spend a lot of time confirming what has happened in the first 7 volumes, which, because the series is so dialogue heavy, becomes a bit tedious to reread for a second time. They also reiterate what's already been said in the same chapter sometimes, just so you know that both parties know what's happening. And it ends up just coming across as more convenient and much less smart. But it's still very good, and like I said, very dialogue heavy, and I still think personally it holds up. I also read the Death Note short stories, which came out 4 months ago, and this definitely answered a lot of questions that I had after reading Death Note, such as what would the Death Note be like in the current era with smartphones and the internet. It also gives you more insight on L, and probably the thing I was interested most is how L has so much money. What I will say though, that if you do own the volume 13 How to Read, it has the original one-shot included and also some of the 4 comas, which for someone that owns volume 13 kind of feels like a little bit cheated, like I'm losing out probably around 60-70 pages. But then again, there's probably people that don't actually have the volume 13, so this is definitely worth the read if you have the first 12 volumes. After all that brings me up to 59%, which is 698 volumes in total. I'm probably going to be slowing down slightly on the manga reading because I only want to get to 80. I'm also going to calm down on the purchasing as well, because the more I purchase, the lower the number will go. And if I'm going to be slowing down on reading, then the numbers are going to go down even more. But I shouldn't have an issue because One Piece has volume 100 coming out soon, and 100 volumes that I haven't read is 15% of my entire collection, roughly, maybe a little bit more. So I have plenty of time to get to 80 before the end of the year. But anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.